Hey everyone, welcome to the September 8th edition of Give Me 5 Minutes with Fort Smith City Director Neil Martin, where we talk about the events that happened last week and we look ahead to what's going on this week. Let's go ahead and jump in. Last Tuesday, September 3rd, was a regular board meeting. We voted on a number of items. I'm not going to hit on all of those. I'm just going to kind of highlight some things and then talk about where we disagreed. We had disagreement on a master land use plan change and a rezoning at a property off of Old Highway 271. Seemed to be there was disagreement between the landowner and what happened at the planning commission versus what was in front of the board. George Katsavis, Christina Katsavis, and I voted to send that back to the planning commission. It was defeated, 3 in favor, 4 against. And then there was a motion to pass what was in front of the board. And again, the same 3, George Katsavis, Christina Katsavis, and I, voted against passing this. So that motion moved forward. We also disagreed about purchasing water slides or the water slide complex at Parrot Island. We've talked about this a lot over the last few weeks and maybe a couple months. And ultimately, those slides were voted on. $4.2 million for slides that'll be installed at Parrot Island. There were 4 in favor of the purchase of those slides, 3 against. Again, it was George Katsavis, Christina Katsavis, and I voted against it. And since that vote, I've heard from a lot of folks that were very frustrated on those slides. Now, I know it's going to be nice. It'll be a great addition to Parrot Island, but there was a lot of people that expressed frustration to me about that. But it was a 4-3 vote. We also were going to vote on a lease agreement between the county and the city. Actually, the county leasing that Parrot Island property to us. I wanted to go ahead and make a vote on it and not go back and have additional negotiations, but it was 5 in favor of tabling that item and having continued negotiations, and 2 against. Those 2 against were George Katsavis and I. So I was really ready to make the vote and vote against that lease agreement, but ultimately it was tabled. Now, what I believe is going to happen, that's probably going to go through and we're going to lease that property from the county. That's, again, I don't know if that's true or not, but just kind of based on what I'm seeing, that would be my guess. One of the other items that we did talk about, and didn't spend a ton of time on it, but we talked about it, and it's coming up in our study session and some other meetings this week, is there was an item to authorize the city administrator to propose a 2036 end date for the consent decree, basically a deadline for the consent decree, and continue negotiations with the EPA and the DOJ. Basically, we decided to table that. It was 7-0 to table that. And as we move into next week, this is an item on our study session, but then there's also a couple opportunities for public input for the consent decree financial plan. So let's go ahead and look forward into next week. So on Monday and on Thursday, there are public input meetings. These are at the Blue Lion, 101 North 2nd Street in downtown Fort Smith. So it's going to be Monday at 6 o'clock and then Thursday at 6 o'clock, where you, the citizens, will be able to hear potential financial plans for the consent decree. Now, we've seen some of these things, but the board has not discussed fully these plans that will be talked about. So the group that comes on Monday to hear this financial plan, they'll be hearing some things that the board hasn't formally talked about. Now, we're going to talk about them on Tuesday, but we have not formally spoken about these items. So Monday and Thursday are those public input meetings. I encourage you to be there, and I encourage you to hear. I encourage you to provide feedback on these financial plans or some variations of financial plans for the consent decree. That would be an extension to where it would end in 2036. We would be out from under the eyes of the EPA and the DOJ by 2036. So I encourage you to be there for that. Now, our study session on Tuesday, on September 10th, we will hear from RDOT regarding the upcoming improvements to Rogers Avenue between Waldron and South 74th. A lot of people have seen this plan and have expressed concern, maybe a little bit of frustration. RDOT's going to be talking to the board about this. If you look at the plan, there is a raised median in a large stretch of Rogers Avenue, and a lot of people have expressed some concerns about that. So RDOT's going to be speaking to us and talking to us about it. We'll be reviewing proposed solar projects and other initiatives in the city of Fort Smith. We'll talk about the financial information regarding the consent decree modification, what you'll hear on Monday and what you'll hear on Thursday. We'll be talking about it as a board on Tuesday. So you'll have another opportunity to hear what the board thinks on Tuesday. Then we will also discuss departmental service objectives for 2025. This is something we go through every year with the board. So a lot of interesting things happening, a lot of very important things, important for you and important for the future of the city of Fort Smith, will be discussed this week. So I make plans to be there Monday or Thursday, or be there on Tuesday to listen to the board talk about the consent decree. And maybe we're coming closer to some resolution. Maybe there's some other things out there that we need to think about and consider. That's it for this week's Give Me Five. I hope the information was informative and made you better aware of the items that are in front of your board of directors. Don't ever forget that. We are your board of directors. Everybody have a great week. Enjoy this cooler weather, and we will do this again next Sunday on Give Me Five.